All right. Well, hello, folks. I'm just now joining the AMA over on the IGDA, so if you guys are joining, just getting everything set up. And see if people have any questions. This isn't Ask Me Anything, so feel free to ask whatever you want. Yeah, Livio just told me on the IGDA. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to just drop them into the chat. Well, hello there, Jessica. Let me see if I can get into...
Rated E for everyone.
Check, check, check. All right, I just joined the audio chat here, so if you guys want to ask questions, ask away. I know Livio is still setting up. If you guys can hear me, I'm also streaming on all of my dev channels. So I'm still kind of setting stuff up on my side as well, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Let me let these people know. Cool. So yeah, I'm doing an AMA for IGDA.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on,
For
man?
everyone.
Testing, testing. I don't hear you guys.
Give me a sec. Let me mute some stuff
I know
on my
what it is.
end. There we go. Cool. Jessica, thank you for letting me know you guys can hear. It's all good. I think that's kind of the whole point, is we can kind of see the chat. So if you guys, as long as you guys can hear and you guys can ask questions, it's all good.
No, how do I? Okay. Good.
Livio, is that you?
I still can't hear anything because my default audio device is set to my mic, which is not an audio device. And the latest Windows update hid the volume settings, so I don't know where it is. Okay, I think I've found. Oh, I know. I have to go into Discord. Discord. Output device should be.
So for you guys that can't hear me, I might be a little lightheaded. I haven't had a chance to really eat anything. I picked up food on the way home, but I haven't had a chance to eat yet. You guys are more important, of course.
Hey, I hear you now.
Awesome.
What? It's just such a funny sequence of events.
Yeah, with technical difficulties, dude, I would use another F word, but yes. Especially with Windows updates, man.
So Windows had a huge update on the last day of April, and they called it their big April update. And I'm like, everyone's gonna download it in May. This is not an April update.
Yeah.
But it was very big, and I can understand their design goals for moving the sound thing, but
well,
it was hilarious that I only noticed it until now.
That's usually what happens, man. The most inopportune moments is when you get those updates.
Okay, let's make sure OBS is good. Testing, testing. Can you say something?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, that's good.
I was actually going to say that I had a story of a time when I was showing the game at an event, and you get one of those things where Windows does the updates, and you can't shut down the computer, so you're waiting the whole time there. Once the event's done, waiting for it to.
That is surprisingly common.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm ready to start now.
Cool.
Let's. I always start by asking the speaker to introduce themselves a bit, like provide a little self summary of your career so far.
Sure. Just let me know when, man.
Do it now. I'm ready.
Okay. All right, so yeah, my name is JC Salinas. I am the creative director of Ask an Enemy Studios out of El Paso, Texas. I created the studio after dropping out of college. So I love talking with people that want to go to school or possibly are in school, and just, you know, hearing their kind of like stories and stuff and what they want to accomplish and see if school's right for them. Because my thing has never been drop out of school. My thing has been that's just what worked for me. I know everyone has different ways of dealing with things, but yeah, so I'm currently working on a game called A Dual Hand Disaster Tracker. It is a split screen. Actually, let me change that because I've changed that a little bit. It is the only split screen single player twin stick risk 'em up in which your score is meaningless unless you exist. So yeah, that's kind of my thing, man. I can kind of keep going on stuff, or if you have questions of your own, if anyone in the chat has any questions, of course, I'm happy to answer those as well.
Testing. Yeah, so feel free to ask questions.
Yeah.
Usually I start out, but I'm troubleshooting more things.
Oh, no, it's all good, man. You're good on my end. I noticed Jessica in the chat posted that she's finally here for one. So how many of these have you done so far, man?
You are number 26.
Oh, nice. Okay. Cool.
I'm just going to have OBS record my audio. Testing. Okay. Testing. Can you say some more things?
Sure. I could actually just talk a little more about the game, I guess, if you want me to, or whatever.
Okay. Sorry.
It's
I'm just adjusting my audio levels. Okay. So just to... Okay, we're all set now. I usually record my audio separately, but my other recording is messed up, so I'm just merging it with OBS.
Right on. It's all good.
I captured all your things now. You were captured properly, so we don't have to do that again.
Cool.
And so I had a first question for you, which is your current game project. How long have you been working on it?
I started in 2013 when I dropped out, and have been working on it since. I do have a day job, which cuts in like 8 hours of my day.
Part-time indie.
Yeah, what's that?
Part-time indie.
Yeah, totally. Well, actually, I'd still consider it full-time because like it's what I want to be doing, and it's the only thing I do. Because yeah, the day job, like I've met a lot of developers going to all these different events and everything, where you know, they have a day job where their day job is programming or being at like some big studio or something. And then they get home and like, that's kind of like the last thing they would want to work on, right? As like a project.
Yeah.
Where like, I think that's kind of what motivates me, is having a day job that just absolutely sucks balls and like has nothing to do with video games. So it kind of like motivates me even more to be like, all right, yeah, this is kind of what I want to do. Not from a financial perspective, but just the idea of like, yeah, dude, like I would 100 million times rather be working on this, you know?
Did you say what your day job was? I think I missed it.
No. I actually don't like giving them any credit because it's just a really boring day job. All it is matching IDs.
What industry / type of job?
Oh,
if you don't want to say.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess just customer service. I mean, because all I do is match IDs with certificate information and pass it along. That's it.
Sounds like data input.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, that is exactly what it is. Just entering information and
data entry.
Yeah. Double checking information. It's boring. It's boring as hell, man. But
so I kind of agree with the whole thing. Where I know somebody who's been looking for a job in games or in tech recently, and they've had a little bit of a hard time, so they decided to just get a job at Red Robin. And
nice.
As a cook. And it wasn't until after they started working there that they really got fired up. Like, no, I'm going to start working on stuff on the side, build that portfolio. And like, because apparently
Yeah.
having like, because it like you hate the job, and so that fires you up and it kind of keeps you going, I guess.
Oh yeah, dude,
While also
100%,
supporting
man.
you financially.
Yeah. I mean, it's doing it, you know. So I mean, one of the reasons why I dropped out of school was because of the idea of, you know, if I'm gonna be in debt forever, and I'm not learning a damn thing at school about what I want to do, I may as well drop out, go into debt on my own, and fail on my own terms, pretty much, you know? And along the way, I mean, I've had help from friends, and a super supportive friend here at home who, you know, she helps me when I can't pay for my booth at an event, she'll pay for the booth, I'll pay for my hotel kind of stuff. So, you know, it's all about just like what opportunities you have available, how can you, you know, take advantage of it, and then, you know, just hopefully you earn your part of that process. You know what I mean? But yeah, like a really big part of it is you got to be willing to, unless you're able to, you're lucky and you strike gold and you get like a publisher deal or something, then yeah, you can, well, even that's not really striking gold, but it's the idea of like, you know, being able to go to a game full time, which is something I've tried to do. You know, I've pitched the game to a couple of publishers and they've all passed. And I don't blame them. You know, they want to make money. The game I'm making, I have no idea whether it'll make money or not. All I know is I'm doing this because I dropped out of school and I want to prove to myself that I can make a video game, even though, you know, a university didn't teach me anything about it. That's pretty much it, yeah. But yeah, it's been a process, man. But like it's been a lot of fun. Like when I went to my first GDC back in like 2014, that was like the first one I went to, and I went to E3 the year prior, and I think that's where I was like, all right, I definitely want to do this. I want to make a video game. And then when I went to GDC in 2014, that was when like the fire was just lit, because I got 100,000% out of my comfort zone. Started talking to people that I normally wouldn't, which came from the whole thing that started at the E3. At E3, is I got up out of my comfort zone, started talking to people, asking questions about things, and yeah, just got started that way. Yeah, because again, I just wanted to prove to myself that, you know, if the school isn't going to teach me anything, I'll teach myself this stuff and I'll do something about it.
That sounds like a common experience.
Yeah.
In that, like, getting out of the comfort zone is a big thing for a lot of students, and I've heard teachers talk about this as well. Like in Seattle, especially, I've met teachers who try to help their students get more prepared to go into the games industry or the tech industry, and they do often complain about how a lot of times it feels like the biggest resistance can be some students just aren't ready to get out of their comfort level. Like they don't go to as many networking events, even though here in Seattle there's like a bajillion of them.
Yes, dude. And so being from El Paso, where we don't have any of that kind of stuff, and then going to a place like Seattle and meeting the people I have and stuff, and it's just like, holy crap, man. Like, that's kind of where, you know, the thing where I started doing panels called, with the title, Make Games Not Excuses, because I started going to all these events and meeting people where they had so many awesome opportunities available to them, and they would always just, this is a personal thing, it's just an opinion I have, of course, right? But it always felt like their reasons were not justified for not taking advantage of those different opportunities, you know? And it felt more like an excuse to not get out of that comfort zone like we were talking about. Whether it's like, oh, well, I already have a job at Amazon or whatever, but I really want to do this. It's like, bullshit, because if you really wanted to do it, you would do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and some people have like weird situations that are in the way, but many people don't.
Yeah. And yeah, don't get me wrong, dude. Like there are people with quote unquote problems, I guess. I can't find another word right away, but a good example of something where something like that just kind of stuck in me was it last year at Megabooth? I was lucky enough to be chosen for Mega Booth, right? So I showed the game at the Mega
For
Booth.
which event?
For GDC.
Oh, GDC.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, so my point was there's this guy who came up. He was in a wheelchair, had to have one of those like type things to talk to people. And
I might have met that guy.
Oh, really?
I have his card. I forget his name off the top of my head.
Oh,
yeah,
dude, if you have his information, I would love to know that. Yeah.
I should reach out to him. I should look back at my cards from last year.
Yeah, dude. If you do, like, seriously, let me know, because I didn't get a chance to talk to him, because what happened was I was talking to some students who were talking about, you know, hoping they could one day be at Mega Booth, blah, blah, whatever. So, you know, we did the thing of talking about all that stuff. But this one guy comes up behind us who happens to be this guy. And, you know, he's got actual physical handicaps. You know what I mean? However,
I forget
he's
the
still
name of his condition, but
right. Yeah.
It's a popular one. ALS.
Okay.
I think so.
Right.
When I say popular, I mean like there's a lot of charities.
I get you. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the thing, is this guy had legitimate reasons to be the person who could be like sitting on his ass and just complaining about not being able to do anything. And he comes up to us and he's like, "Do you guys want to try my game?" And I'd like, dude, I was like just floored. Unfortunately, like I said, right when that happened, I got like some media people who came over. I got distracted, but luckily the people I was talking to did take advantage of that situation. And they started talking to him and doing all that stuff. But it's just like, come on, you know, like that's why my first question whenever someone says like, I want to do this, whatever, I ask them, well, what's holding you back? Because once you break that barrier of knowing, okay, well, that's a dumb reason. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of, it's like an icebreaker type thing where you can just, like, break through and just be like, all right, let's see what your reasons are. Let's talk about them and then see if it's a valid thing or whatever.
Yeah, and
you know,
one of the goals that I've had with this whole speaker series, like,
yeah,
you're the which one, the 26th AMA that we've done so far? Mm-hmm. One of the goals is to basically expose students to a lot of different types of career paths, so that you can eventually get a sense of how to better construct a path that fits for you better.
Right on.
As opposed to having like a monolithic advice that's like, well, everybody should do this, everybody should do that. And so I do think that there, like, for every individual person, you're going to have to figure it out yourself, like what your career path into games will look like and what you have to work with and what limitations you'll have to overcome.
Totally.
And as we look at these paths, we tend to see patterns of things that get in people's way. And so like unfortunately, people get in their own way a lot.
Yeah. No, dude, that 100,000%. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Or another way to frame it would be, when I was in middle school and high school, I was really shy, like cripplingly shy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until games and like that realization of, okay, at this rate, like my networking skills are terrible. I'm not going to get a job at this rate. Something has to change. And so like that feeling of something has to change. Slowly over time, I was able to build up the habits that like expand my comfort zone. The way I often think of it as a form of strength. Like I have to build up the strength.
Yes.
to, and especially for introverts, like introverts get tired out by social interaction. And so I think of it as a stamina game as well. And so like, but once you get a really good handle of the problem, then you can start working on it. Yeah,
totally. And I mean, it really does come down to that, dude. Like the individual person needs to have that, like, it goes back to how I was saying, you know, like where someone says like, oh, well, I really want to do this. And it's like, I don't think you do because you'd be doing it. It really comes down to that. It's like the individual needs to have that like thirst for I guess knowledge, if that makes sense, in wanting to figure out how to make a video game, because I didn't know anything, dude. I didn't know programming. I didn't know how to draw. I mean, as a musician and stuff, I knew I could write music or whatever, but like, and you know, I would sketch around here and there when I was in school and stuff, but yeah, like I didn't know anything. And I just threw myself in and was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And as I started to do it, so here's one of those things, right? Is like once you start to do something, you might even start to think like, holy crap, I actually don't want to do this because I don't like the programming or I don't like drawing or whatever. But at the same time, there are people that also will figure out, well, oh, okay, I don't like the programming aspect, but what I will do is I did like the music stuff, right?
Yeah, so you pivot.
Yeah, totally. And it was really cool because I did a talk at like a community college here in Las Cruces, where I met a kid that was like that. Like he, the professor in the class put like a whole team together, and then by doing that, the guy who originally went in to try and make a video game or whatever, found out that he hated everything about making a video game except for making music. So he started following the path of making music instead. So yeah, but the thing is, you have to get, again, out of that comfort zone type thing to where you do at least do something. And I think you kind of referenced this earlier about having to like build up a portfolio or whatever. And that's a really good thing to do, because what you're doing is, even if it's just futzing around with like, Unreal Engine or even like some kind of 3D engine or like not 3D engine, like a Maya or whatever, right? And you have something to show. Like, for example, what I tell people is like when they come up to the booth and they're like, hey, how do I make a video game or whatever? I ask them, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, oh, well, I like art. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you have? What have you drawn? They're like, oh, well, I got these ideas. And I'm like, well, show me. And they're like, well, I kind of have them back at home on this paper. And it's like, no, like, if you want to get someone interested in what you're doing, show them what you're willing to do to earn that, I guess, respect, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you start networking, you'll find like, okay, having something to show at all times is helpful. And so that will inform the kinds of projects that you pick up as well. Even for freelancing, I find that when sometimes you have dry seasons where you can't get a contract, no one's hiring for some reason.
Right.
And during those times, I will specifically work on just a random project just for myself, and so that when I do meet with people, I can at least point to something that I'm working on and look busy.
Right on.
So I want to open up again to encourage people to ask questions. It looked like Jessica was trying to ask one earlier.
Oh, right, yeah.
I might be wrong. You'll have to unmute yourself if you want to ask, or you can type.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, ask away. So one of the things I do at panels I do is I tell people that if they have a question, just interrupt. Like, if I say something that's like all of a sudden like, oh, hey, I'd like to ask about that. Like, obviously this is kind of a lot easier because you can kind of just type out the question. But yes, like if I'm talking, or, if we're talking together, ask the question, because yeah, we can totally just read the chat and answer your questions. Because that's how I learned how to do anything and it's a really dumb thing, right? Like, ask a question, but it's obvious, and there are a lot of people that don't. For a lot of reasons. Some people like probably don't ask questions because they feel they're going to ask the wrong question, and don't ever do that, because then basically what you're doing is you're putting more power in the person who you have no idea who they even are, and you're making them have some kind of power over you by thinking you're somehow inferior because of the question you asked. Like, they have nothing to do with your question. Ask your question because that's what you want to know.
Yeah, and I don't think people will remember it too much if it was bad questions.
Right? Yeah. People only remember the good questions, I guess. You kind of counter your whole point.
I'll read the question aloud just for the recording.
Sure,
so Jessica asked, I was wondering why you decided on a single-player split screen. Like you said, not the norm.
Yeah, so that wasn't, like, intentional in the sense of, like, oh, I'm going to make this game that nobody's ever made. Basically what I did was I just sat in front of my screen when I started to want to work on something, right? And I kind of looked at the screen, and just a blank screen, and I held a controller in my hand, and I just like asked myself what I wanted to see on the screen, like what did I want to do, and I just kind of started fiddling with like the thumbsticks, and I started to think about one of my favorite games, which is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Where you control two brothers at the same time. And something about the way that game controlled was really cool, like being able to do two things at one time. And the other thing was the controls were really simple. So it was basically just a controller split in half, and you have your left trigger to basically interact. Like that's really all you did. I thought that was really cool. But then when I started thinking about it, it was the idea of when two things are on the same screen and they cross the center of the screen. Ibn Ob does this a lot too. You cross the center of the screen and you forget who you're controlling. And when you're trying to solve a puzzle, that gets really frustrating sometimes. So I just like pulled up GameMaker and just started throwing stuff in. And, you know, I try to keep it simple. So all I did was I put a little white square in the center, started moving it with the left stick, and then put another square on the right and started moving it. And I was like, this is really cool. But having them control completely free was really hard to wrap my head around. So, sorry, were you going to ask something, dude?
No, I was just trying to clarify. It sounded like you, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. But yeah, so that was kind of the idea. Is I like that, and then I started building off of that idea. And if you have a chance, like you can go to my YouTube channel, and I have it's youtube.com/AskAnEnemyStudios, and I have a trailer on there called TLDR Progress, and it shows you what the game looked like when I started it in GameMaker. And I did that trailer specifically for the reason of showing, you know, like people who are like me who wanted to make a video game, that your game's going to look terrible when you start it out. But as long as you keep applying yourself to it, right, you'll end up, you know, in a different spot than where you started. Because yeah, I mean, I get that a lot. I get a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm terrible at art, but I'm good at programming or something, and it's, you know, kind of the same idea. So you basically, I think of this kind of differently, I guess, than maybe most people do, where I say don't focus on your strengths because they're your strengths for a reason. Focus on your weaknesses and how you can overcome those. Where most people say focus on your strengths. Like, I get that point also, but I think the focus on your weaknesses, to a certain extent, don't dwell on them. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, right, is don't dwell on your weaknesses. That's a problem I think people need to overcome.
So you're thinking about it from the perspective of if your project is to learn and basically training, focus on your weaknesses. But if you, and then the flip side is if you really want to impress people, make money, basically, focus on your strengths.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
You can do both. Maybe not at the same time. Maybe at the same time.
No, you totally can. Again, it just goes back to the individual. Because again, I'm doing these things on my own because I started not knowing what I was doing. So to start getting, like, some people start to think of the outcome of the objective before they even think of the objective, right? So they start to think, oh, well, I need a team, so I need to find an artist. I need to find this. It's like, there's a lot you can do on your own. And then once you find, if you have a bottleneck or if you have something where, like I said, don't dwell on the weaknesses. So if you know your art is terrible and you are just not going to do a good job, in your own opinion, of doing good art, then yeah, focus on getting an artist. Focus on hopefully paying the artist, right? Because you do want to do that. But yeah, like, so start to think of it that way in a sense.
Yeah, and so we have a question from,
sure.
I don't know how to pronounce this.
SMU
Smolak. It might not be designed to pronounce him. It's probably like an alias.
Yeah, no, totally.
Which SMU is probably, I don't know. SMU
probably. That's a university or something, isn't it?
Which games did you get inspired to develop your current project?
Oh, man. Well, yeah, so again, I don't know if you were here for this, but that's what I was talking about, is games like Ibn Ob, because you're controlling two things at the same time.
Ib and Ob?
Ib and Ob, yeah. IBB and OBB.
Okay. Ib and Ob.
Yeah.
Ibn Ob. And the Two Brothers game?
Yes, Brothers. Also, obviously, you can kind of tell my age based on the game. Well, I don't know if these guys have played the game or whatever, but it is kind of like you're playing Galaga and Pac-Man at the same time. So I kind of went back to some of the old games of, like, So here's the thing. When you start a game also, you also definitely want to focus on scope. So you want to make sure you're not, oh, I'm going to make the next, Call of Duty or the next, Skyrim or whatever. If you do, more power to you, but understand what you're getting yourself into, because those games were made by a team of like thousands of people at some point, right? But yeah, so scope. So my thing was like, I'll think small, and I started to think of something just fun and arcadey. And I really like Housemarque's games, which are, like Resogun, Super Stardust. Not too big on the Dead Nation, though. But those kind of like spaceshipy, kind of like shoot stuff and get scores kind of thing. So that's where that kind of came from. The thing with games kind of like what Housemarque's been doing lately, though, is a lot of those kind of score-based games, they started to lose some... I don't know how to explain it, but with me personally, like I started to get bored with them to a point where they started to focus too much on just surviving. And that's like your score kind of became arbitrary at that point. So it didn't matter anymore. It was just kind of like you go and you die and you keep your score no matter what. But if you die and you had a really high score, there was no risk involved there, right? Because you just kind of like, you just try to top yourself every time. And I don't know, some of that just kind of killed it for me. So my thing was instead of just like complaining and being a guy on a blog saying like Housemarque should make this kind of game, that's kind of where I just put my foot in my mouth, and it was like, all right, I'm gonna make the game I wish they would make.
That's how I got into games too.
Nice.
I was playing a bunch of games on the internet that let you make your own levels in them, like little platformers, and I got involved with this little community that was really into that, and we're like, wouldn't it be great if they added this feature? Because like, once you play a certain game a lot, it gets stale. So a lot of the craving was like, we wish the game had more content so that it didn't get so boring so fast. But and then I'm like, wait a minute, I have Flash, and so I started learning. I bought some books on making Flash games, and that's how I got started. And from there, like that was the first time I even considered games as a career.
Right.
Just me being like, wait, what if I made this, and then like, what if I made games in general?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, did you use tools like that too? Like just like kind of before Game Maker-y kind of things, like RPG Maker and stuff, like stuff that was kind of like already templated out, sort of. Or did you also just
I played a lot of level maker games.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Like what was one? I guess when Minecraft came out, I made a lot of Minecraft stuff.
Okay, cool.
And Super Mario Flash before Mario Maker.
Nice, yeah.
I wanted to play with the ROM hacks, but I never actually got around to it. It seemed like a complicated thing.
Right on.
But that was just me in high school being like intimidated by everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, like for me personally, my first, I guess, level editor game was Excitebike on the NES. Like, ooh. It's crazy to think they were able to pull off some kind of level editor in that game.
Remember Line Rider? And there was a game that came out called Free Rider, which is basically Line Rider, but you can drive a bike around.
Yeah, and then you just make a bunch of curves or something. Wasn't that like an iPhone game or something?
Maybe. They probably came out with one after the fact, but I just remember it as a Flash game. I played a lot of Flash games.
Oh, nice.
So, if anyone has a question, feel free to jump in.
Yes, by all means. I noticed JM here posted. Sorry, I was totally.
How many other have you worked on other games before this one? Either side projects or learning projects?
Nope. This was it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. I went to game design school, quote unquote, for those who can't see. For thinking they were going to teach me how to make a game, because again, I didn't know how to make a game. Like, I didn't know what you would need to do. I understood you needed to have rules and stuff, but like, you know, you kind of have sometimes like a structure of understanding you need to do this, or this is kind of like, these are mechanics kind of thing or whatever. And yeah, so like, I just kind of, jumped in and just did it.
I think it's interesting because you've internalized a lot of learnings that people get after they failed a bunch of projects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, I've failed a lot.
thing.
I've just stayed on one project. You know what I mean?
I started out as well. Like I
Yeah.
kept on working on the same project over and over again.
Yeah.
And the thing that kind of broke me out of that loop was the basically game jams.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Totally.
and I'm like, working on different projects actually helps me learn a lot, and I just really like that idea. And I also once I made a bunch of little games, and I also like rebooted my main project over and over again, I got a much clearer sense of basically treating projects differently as, okay, this is a serious, real project. Like I intend to finish it, versus just something that I'm chipping away at and
Yes.
not really arriving at anywhere.
Right on.
Yeah. So that helped me learn that as well.
Cool. No, and that's cool, man. And that's why I like talking to people that like do that kind of stuff, because and I recommend that to people who like to work that way, because my thing, and again, it just my opinion, but with game jams, granted, I've never actually done one, but to me, like, I'm a musician first and foremost, so I always see it as like joining like a new band or something, right? Like you go and you join a band or whatever, and then you write like a couple of songs, and some of them have some really cool like either hooks to them or like something rad about them, and then the band ends up just breaking up, and you wasted all that energy in like those songs or whatever, right? And that's the worst feeling. So when I started working on this game, that was the last thing I wanted to do. Was just start fiddling around with a bunch of different ideas and games. I just wanted to do something and make it. Oh yeah, Sir Joan, thank you for stopping by. 3 a.m. Jeez. Yeah. So I noticed back up in the chat, he or she posted, you can call me Sir Joan.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
I almost typed it, and like it may not make much sense, but
No, it's all good. But yeah, thank you for
I get what
stopping
you're
by,
saying
of course.
about game jams. And there's always an air at the end of every jam of like, are we going to continue this project? Are we going to make it real? And it never happens.
Right.
unless people get actually serious about it. Like, for example, I'm contracting with a company that started as a result of a jam.
Oh, cool.
And so, like, basically, the people who were starting the company, they were kind of already on their way to start the company anyway. But then they went to a jam, and they're like, this might be a good first project for our company. And
okay.
they picked it up from there.
I was gonna ask who it was, because knowing from Seattle, like, I know a couple of I've made some friends there, and they actually did do also a game jam, and their game turned into something, so that was kind of cool.
So the company that I'm referring to is called Inverse. They're a VR game studio.
Oh yeah, cool, dude! I didn't know you worked with them. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm literally at their office right now.
Oh, nice. Well, tell them I said what's up, dude. Sure they remember me. Yeah. Dude, that is crazy, because like, I mean, that is like you just like jumped into something massive too. It does, most people think, oh, like, a game jam, kind of like little 2D type game or something, right?
Yeah. They've been working on that game for, I feel like, over a year now.
Right.
And so like they've released on Steam. They've been posting updates to the community. They made a lot of mistakes along the way, especially on the business side.
Right. But it's still early access too, isn't it?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I haven't checked in a while.
Yeah.
I think of it as being released, like the way they talk about it. It might still be early access though.
Right. Well, yeah, because I haven't had a chance to jump in lately and give it a shot, but
Yeah, so they made a game called The Nest, which is a
Yeah.
VR sniper battle game.
Yes, because I was gonna say Victor was gave me access to like well, I don't know if you were with the team at this point, but when they were working on the multiplayer stuff for it.
Yeah, they released it.
Oh shit! Okay, cool. So then I
It
definitely
was
have to
a
jump in.
massive update.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing is, again, for anyone who's listening, that the idea of staying focused is really, really important. And even though you're going to miss out on stuff like that, like, you know, you'll miss out on some of the games that your friends have been releasing and stuff because you are balls deep in trying to finish your own project. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Yeah. Well, now that I know that, dude, congrats. Because, yeah, that's definitely awesome. Those are some awesome dudes, too, man.
Mm-hmm. Jay, do you have a question or?
I don't really have a question. I just thought your dialogue about sort of, I don't know, churning through ideas that you get motivated to do, and then, you know, you crash and burn because you haven't set up a project that large before.
Awesome.
Everybody
Good
goes
learning
through
experience.
that. And I read about it a lot when I started teaching myself
Mhm.
all these different skills. So I knew that would happen, and I just planned on it. So what I did was I would always start with what I considered to be the most difficult problem the game idea would present me. And that would get done, right? And then so I've got a box of these broken, badly programmed systems, but you rip them out and refactor them and they're okay.
Oh, yeah. Have
Have you ever
you?
read that famous? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry,
No.
like,
No. Go ahead, dude. Go ahead.
Have you ever read that famous article by Derek Yu, the guy who made Spelunky, about how to actually finish a game?
No. What did he
it's-
do?
It's a little blog post, but it basically it just sounds like every single like person's experience when they first start making games, which is you have the big monolith project that you will try your hardest to make finish, and then along the course because you're learning, you'll decide like maybe 3 times to reboot the entire project and start from scratch.
Right.
Like I've learned so much. Think of what I could do now that I know how to make this better, and so you make it again and again. And he found like just saying stop making it again and go get on with it and finish it.
Yeah.
Like having that discipline to do that.
Yeah, you know what? That honestly goes back to how I was talking about the idea of, you know, pretty much scope and focus and stuff. Because my buddy Zach was the one who actually brought up the idea of feature creep, and I'd heard about this before, but it is one of those things where like, yeah, you kind of start to do something, and then you're just like, oh, this sounds kind of cool, maybe I'll do that, and then you just keep doing that. And believe me, I've been a victim of that too. But like, yeah, you really have to have that discipline of just stopping and you know.
I think it's a great way to learn it though. Like
Yeah.
making those mistakes is probably one of the best ways to learn it, so that you can feel the pain and the regret.
Right,
That way
totally.
next time you will have the motivation in you to actually keep yourself in check.
Yeah. Well, and then so my thing was, I'm sorry, I don't know if the dude's still on the line right now or whatever.
Jay.
Oh no, you're fine, man. I have a mic I usually use and I don't know where it is, so.
Oh, okay, cool. What was your name, dude? I'm sorry.
Oh, my name's Jay.
Oh,
I mean,
cool. Okay. I just wanted to know so I could address you if I need to ask something. But actually, my question was like, with those ideas that you say you've kind of like just had lying around or whatever, have you used those for any games you've released or any projects you're working on right now? Like, what do you do when you have all those ideas just kind of sitting around?
My first game is a discombobulated zombie of patched together broken failed games. That's what it is. It's awful. It generates like 30 kilobytes of garbage data a frame because it's like 10,000 lines long, and
Totally unoptimized and stuff.
the main menu is made of a bunch of, like, I didn't know anything about the way Unity's UI worked when I made this menu. So you can't change anything about it, and it's all just hard-coded values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of been going through that right now with my game too, where optimization is something where, you know, again, when you drop out of school and you don't know how to program, you write code in a really bad way. So I'm having like a really bad performance problem right now on like Switch and like the consoles and stuff, where on PC you're not, but that's just because you're like, you know, you're throwing all this horsepower from PC where you kind of don't see your mistakes until you have the limitations of having like a bottleneck on GPU or CPU or something. And then you're like, oh, the game didn't run like that before, you know?
Well, I've also approached it. You know, I didn't graduate because the school I went to was garbage, and nobody likes to hear me say that. But I mean, a lot of people from here aren't from Kansas.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would have been a great place to study radiology or physical therapy or something, but not computer science. And luckily, I had one really good professor who taught me the fundamentals, and so I mean, you don't have to be efficient. You just have to program for a fixed known cost.
That makes sense.
Once it becomes too much, it's too much, right?
It's like just keep in mind all the trade-offs, and as long as...
Oh, yeah. And you have to understand and pay attention to things like, you know, how much are you normalizing vectors? It's all that stuff, you know.
Yeah. So you know Victor, the programmer at Inverse who started the Nest, their current project. He never really got a formal education in programming. And they use Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine has their Blueprint system, which is their drag and drop coding interface.
Right.
It's designed for like in designer type people who want to make quick logic changes in the code without actually coding. He programmed that entire game in Blueprints because he did not know code, like real coding, quote unquote real coding. And over the course of making that game, he became like so technically deep on how the engine worked and how everything worked. And he still prefers to write in Blueprints. And he recently started a little side contract with another company where they were doing a bunch of stuff. And he was working with, for the first time, working with programmers who like were real programmers.
Nice.
And were more experienced than him and stuff. But he had more Unreal Engine experience, and he was like, he was really surprised. Like, I'm telling these people who are quote unquote smarter than me all these things that I thought like everybody knew. Like he had this low self, like he did not think of himself as an expert. And then but over the course of working with these people, he's like, you know, I know a lot of stuff.
Oh, nice.
Like, he built up that confidence. He's like, I'm much smarter than I thought. Again, then he gave himself credit for it.
Yeah, no, totally, man.
Yeah. And so like that's an like for people who are often self-taught and stuff, I think that like that self-limitation of like that self-doubt, I guess, can also get in your way a little bit. And I think like nothing trumps practice. Like
right on.
Once you build up those hours of experience, you can be pretty good. Yeah,
totally. And I mean, one of the things I did too is when I started, the reason I went with Unity was because at the time, I started the game in GameMaker, like I said earlier. But at the time when I got my Vita dev kit, Sony didn't support GameMaker. So I had to make a decision whether I was going to go to Unreal, Unity, or their own proprietary engine, which was Fire Engine, right? And Unity at that time was way more like, it was easier to find, like ask a question and get an answer because a lot more of people like myself who were just kind of starting out were using it also. But the other thing was I wanted to write code, and Unreal, granted at that time also Unreal had this really high, like expensive licensing fee too, because they were still in that mindset of like AAA games.
Free yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So have to compete with Unity as much.
No, totally, dude, exactly. And so that was kind of the reason I went with Unity too, is because I wanted to write code so that, you know, if something came up, I could possibly use that skill somewhere else. That wasn't the goal, but I wanted it as a side effect, you know?
That's neat.
Yeah, and even now though, like I don't know, man. I don't even know if I could go to another team and join them as like I sure as shit wouldn't be able to join as a programmer because I wouldn't feel that confident at all. But that also just goes back to the idea of the portfolio, right? Because now it's well, at least I have this game and I've put all this work into this game, and that's my ability to show. It's kind of like how people say go to school to have a piece of paper that shows you dedicated 4, 5, 6 years of your life to something so that you can show that dedication of something. It's the same thing with portfolio work, right? Like, I don't agree with that point, but yeah. But Jay, is that you making that noise?
Yeah, I'm just like, hey,
Let's hear it, man. Let's hear it.
piece of paper. I'm cynical, man. I got
dude.
skills. I left with skills, bro.
Yeah, dude, I'm 100% that way too, man. Like, so when I actually dropped out, I'm actually looking at it right now. But when I dropped out, I printed my resignation withdrawal request, and I put that up on my wall
Wow.
as motivation. Yeah, totally,
I
man.
like this. I like this.
Instead of
Your
a
game is
diploma.
nuts. I don't know. That this is crazy, in a good way.
Hmm.
I'm looking at it. I've been looking at it since I came in here. What
Looking at this game, right?
What possessed you to make a game where
Oh.
you control 2 units at once?
Just I don't know, man. Like, it just came out of me because, like I said, I wanted to make something kind of like, like a brothers game where like you're controlling 2 things at once. But it morphed into this beast, and I really do consider it a beast because, like, yeah, if you get a chance to play it sometime, it's intense, man. And dude, I'm taking a lot of bullets for not like having a proper tutorial in it, because like I wanted also another big inspiration was Braid. And Braid was a really cool game because it didn't waste its time trying to explain what the mechanics were and this and that. It was just like, this is what's going on. You're kind of slowing and you're fucking with time pretty much, Granted that, Braid's a lot, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but a simpler type game because you're not doing 2 things at once or whatever. But yeah, I think like, I wouldn't even call it an Achilles heel, but if you want to call it that, my biggest Achilles heel is the idea of teaching someone how to play the game without me being there. Because at events, like, I will destroy myself to try and teach people how to play the game. And, I think it's been awesome. Like, the people who play it, they like play it. And I've had people play the game for like 3 hours straight on the show floor. And it's kind of one of those things where, like, not literally 3 hours straight. It's kind of like they'll play it for like an hour. Someone comes in, jumps in, and then they just kind of swap out. But they're there the whole time when they could be playing millions of other things that are on the show floor. You know what I mean? And that means a lot. But that shows me that, like, people just need to understand how to play it. And then once they do, like, either they get it or they don't, and that's fine. Yeah. But yeah, explaining the game is, I think, the biggest hurdle, I guess, I need to overcome.
Games have been so standardized, it really hurts when you make something different.
Oh yeah,
it's just frowned on. It's straight just frowned on.
Well, so I wanted to go back to how you were saying, Jay, because you said that your professor taught you the fundamentals or the basics, right? I think you said
computer science fundamentals.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Like, what fundamentals?
Single responsibility principle, encapsulation.
Oh, okay.
Pillars. Don't ask me to list them.
No. That's cool. I was just wondering because
debugging skills. And,
yes. Okay.
Program design.
Registers.
Yeah.
Like, I can take redstone and I can make a clock, and I can make a binary clock with redstone. And
wow.
I mean, that's not wow. It's actually
to me it is, because I don't know. I wouldn't know the first thing on how to do that. But
well,
yeah,
I could show you, and you'd get it in like 20 minutes. It's not binary logic,
Once you've got the fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly.
It really helps to understand what the computer is doing, which is why C# and programming in Unity has been kind of weird, because I just honestly have no idea what it's doing a lot of the time. But
right. So since you know about this kind of programming stuff, that's kind of one of those things I've always wondered too, is it floors me that, like, you can do something in Unity and then it just works on everything else. Like, how in the hell does that happen? But again, it's not magic, right? Like, because I've said, like, it runs great on PC, but then you go to like Switch or something and it runs like shit. So it's not magic, but it kind of is, Like, I don't...
Yeah. Another strategy that I use is that I don't make games for my PC with an i5 4670K and a GTX 980 in it here. I I stop and look at where my performance problem is when my laptop has a problem.
Ah,
Yeah, right.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of studios have the same problem.
And
They use
They
very
have these
powerful
big,
computers.
massive monsters of a PC and stuff. Of
I mean,
dev units.
having powerful computers is great when you're doing stuff like baking lights and compiling and building so that you can do it faster.
you
But
need
when
one.
it's time to test, that can blind
Absolutely.
you.
For 3D modeling, for rendering, for baking lights, that's the big one that I didn't expect and didn't plan on or know. That stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of programming stuff where I feel like part of programming is just managing what you know and what you don't know, and like the magic and what you got a handle on.
Right.
Like I think like it is even for programmers, it's like a big exercise to start picking apart everything that you know and be like, how does this actually tie together? Like when someone touches the screen, what is literally everything that happens that until it comes back to my game? And so like thinking about, okay, the touchscreen has this kind of sensor on it, the sensor works this way, that sends an electrical signal to them, blah 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 blah, and like that kind of thinking, like that kind of thinking is pretty rare, like because so much of programming is about encapsulation, where you kind of think, okay, I don't know exactly how this works, but I know this, this, and this, and I'm just gonna make these assumptions about this, and I'm gonna program around that, and so you almost treat it like a black box. And then when something goes wrong, you can start picking apart the black box. And like, well, maybe the problem is inside the box, or maybe it's outside. Maybe it's my stuff that broke.
Yeah. Well, because also one of those things that I've always wondered about, and again, this was one of the reasons why I thought going to school was the thing to do, was because I figured that there has to be some kind of structure that you go to at least try to start making a game, right? Like, you always see like developer diaries and stuff like that where they have like their art team and all that stuff, and then they have like their meetings, and then you see the whiteboards and stuff. And I always wondered what a structure to a video game was, right? Like how do you build the architecture, whatever the hell. And I started to find out by, again, just going to these events that a lot of people just really do kind of just spitball stuff, and they just go with something. Yeah. Granted, obviously in the bigger studios, obviously they do have their kind of like production kind of crap.
Yeah. So like for personal projects, the constraints are not as crazy. Like you can follow whatever creative process suits you best.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that again, games has really exposed me to, is the whole think about your creative process critically. Think about how much you're iterating, how much you're getting feedback, when you pivot with ideas. But then when it comes to big teams, the problem turns less in like it's still a creative process problem, but it's then becomes a management problem where you're like, we have all these people to coordinate. We gotta do things in a way that doesn't cost as much money or time.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, and so I actually got really interested in like basically producer skills as a result of working on games, because I was kind of like you, where I'm like, I just want to learn how to make a game. And my school did not have any games program. We had a computer science program that I was a part of. And for me, I was always like, how do I make a game? How do I do it? And I'm trying to make a game, and I restart my projects and all that. But then I started to realize, okay, one of the obstacles in my way is this project planning stuff, and also creative process stuff.
Yeah.
Like we lose direction, or we step over ourselves trying to follow a dumb schedule that we came up with that isn't actually working.
Yeah.
And so I think working on these projects, like I would not have been exposed to that entire skill set, and like thinking critically about like your schedule and all that.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for this.
My biggest problem when I got started definitely was abstraction, just creating a larger program than something that runs in one file.
Yes.
Communication between different files.
That was one of my big obstacles too. And when I took an object-oriented programming class in college, that was like, this is the answer to all my questions.
And the way I got
object-oriented programming is literally abstraction. Like it's all about how do we make a big program that doesn't collapse on itself.
Which is, the way I got past that was after I think the second failed project where I was really struggling with null reference exceptions. I just went ahead and said, okay, screw it, it's time to study C#. And so I went and I got C# books specifically. And that's, that's what I recommend doing if you have problems with that.
And similarly, everyone has their own learning style, and I know some people really do want the structure of a class.
Yes.
And I
100%,
am kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, dude. Again, it just goes back to what you want to do as an individual, because, yeah, that's kind of my point, is I didn't like the way they were teaching what they thought they were teaching, And it was just a waste. I like to be goal-oriented also, and, but their goals were not goals I thought were worth trying to reach. So it was just like, all right, well, whatever, I'm out. Before I started to owe, like, the big bucks,
Yeah.
Where again though, like, yeah, locally there was nowhere I could go, like how Jay was saying, like you went into computer science also, right, man?
Oh yeah.
Or computer engineering or whatever. Is there a difference between those two? Or
yeah, I mean, computer engineering.
Nowadays there is.
I don't know. That's kind of soft semantics at that point. I don't know.
Well, computer engineering now I think refers to hardware stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Electrical and computer engineering was a major at my school.
And they're more like physical, like hardware kind of based?
Yeah, like soldering circuit boards together and all that.
Ah. All right, then that makes more sense then. Where, like, I think if I would have gone to school for that, like computer science or something, like, I probably would have enjoyed that too. Because again, once I started to work on the game, I started to realize writing code is really fucking cool. And even in the most basic sense, where with Unity, you're just doing C# scripts or whatever. I'm sure that like that's where my mind just gets blown when I start to think about like game engines and stuff and how they work. Because yeah, like I know writing these dumb little scripts that just say, "Hey, on trigger enter," like.
I don't know. I mean, people
real coding.
reduce to that, and I mean, those scripts are not simple.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to have the time to write the scripts I'm writing and to make a game engine alone. It just won't happen.
Right.
Like,
I know some people who've done it, but that's only because they're really, really passionate about engines.
It's 2D game engine where it's tile based. I see a lot of people like, yeah, I've made my own game engine, and I'm like, okay, all right, well, there's no game here, and then I haven't made a game, so I can't say anything. But I've got.
Well, why not? Why not, dude? Like, what has kept you from trying to make something or from making?
I just don't care.
Oh, okay.
Like I make these component systems, and I've been putting them together and educating myself, and I'm about to. So I've stepped down to mobile, just for two reasons. So that I can show it to people by just handing it to them, and second of all, to push it and see how well it really will perform. So I've got a mobile game with 200 or 300 moving agents, and it's 3D, and there you go.
Yeah. So you're mostly into it more for like the idea of just being able to like make something, like the function of something, then, not really to make a video game and stuff like that.
I just like making games, but I mean, it's if you want to make an intricate game like yours,
right?
It take one person a long time.
Yeah, took me 4 years, man.
I mean, yeah, that's and I mean, that's like your first finished game?
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't even say it's finished yet. It's on early access, but I'm focusing right now on the Switch version. But yeah, it's my first game I've ever touched, I've ever worked on. Yeah.
So like the next one you make can be that complicated, and you'll probably make it in 2 years, right? I mean,
if
you're not.
If I don't have a day job by then and can work on it full time, yeah, that would be awesome.
I feel you.
Yeah, but hey, man, sacrifices. I mean, that really is another thing. Sorry, dude, were you saying something, Olivia?
I was saying that we're technically out of time, but if you want to stay online and chat, you're feel free to do so.
Sure. Well, actually,
I want to let people know.
Yeah.
If you want to step out, it's no big deal.
Oh, I just want to eat my food. That's it. I don't mind. Sorry, Jay, what were you saying?
I found an unfilled niche by accident yesterday.
What's that?
Roll20 sucks. Roll20. Just Google Roll20.
Okay, I'll write that down.
It's a D&D framework.
I was gonna say, I'm sure it's some kind of nerd dice thing or something.
Yeah, I don't even like D&D that much, but Like,
Fucking
who wants to get
nerds.
together and make a version of this that doesn't allow the players to just move their characters through walls.
Yeah.
The DM is like, I drag you back.
Nice.
I'm like, okay. The DM is like, there's a door here. I'm like, okay.
Right on.
Yeah, there's no door, like marked. There's a project that you don't want to just dive into, though. Let's build a level editor. It needs to be an online framework.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I'm going to cut just my stream so that I can have that stop also.
Sure. I'm still recording.
Okay.
But I wanted to follow up a bit.
What was that?
I wanted to follow up a little bit on something that was brought up earlier.
Sure.
So, as far as your so you basically learned a bunch of programming while working on this project.
Yes.
But you've also, it sounds like you've tried to learn everything else, like music, or is that true?
Well, no, not necessarily. So I'm a musician first and foremost. So music just came naturally to me.
Okay,
Well,
so you just do the music.
yeah, the music to me, and I don't mean this in a cocky, I can do anything kind of thing, but like music to me was second nature because I've just been doing it forever.
You weren't fumbling around like you were with programming.
No way. But when I started being a musician, I did in that same sense, right? But now I've been doing that for, I don't know, like 15, 16, maybe more years. And then, yes, but I started the same way with music. Like I thought going to school, or actually I started a long time before that, but I thought going to school would be cool to learn music stuff, and that was a waste of time too. So I actually dropped out of college twice. First as a music major, and then as a game design. There was like a time span of like maybe 8 years between there though, but still. Yeah, so I'm giving my age away. I'm almost 40, man. It sucks. But anyway.
I'm almost 30, so it's all good. Just getting started, and I'm almost 30 because I wasted like 10 years dropping out of college twice, too. It's okay.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm over it.
Right. Well, yeah.
Roll20 doesn't suck that much. I'm not that cynical. It's just an idea.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of the thing, dude, is yeah, music wasn't so hard because of that, but everything else, yeah, totally. Like the art, again, this is going back to that YouTube video I was talking about earlier, the trailer, the TLDR progress thing. It's meant for that reason. It's to show how I went from something that looked terrible to something that looked okay, you know? Like, but it came from me noticing, when I started the game, I wanted to go for that kind of capybara, like pixel aesthetic. And that is really hard to pull off. Like, it's way harder than most people even think. You know, you'll always get those trolls on the internet that are like, oh, this looks like, shut up, you know? That's really hard to do. So I just overcame it and was like, well, what can I do to make it not look so bad? And I started messing around. This was right when the 2D tools started making their way into Unity, because remember, Unity at one point, I started in like 4.3, and it didn't have like proper 2D tools in it yet.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
so it was still like 3D based and stuff. So I was just using a very simple orthographic camera that just flattened everything. And yeah, dude, the game just looked terrible. But I thought, well, I'm in a 3D engine. How much harder could this really be? I already started the game, and the game's working in the most basic sense, right? So I just started messing around, looking up what a perspective camera was, like how the differences were or whatever. And then turned my cameras into perspective, and then I was like, even just that one little switch made the game look completely different, because now it just looked, it had some depth. You know what I mean? It was still 2D and it was still flat.
Yeah.
But it had some depth, and I just started experimenting from there. And then one thing led to another. I got this program called Cubicle, which is a voxel editor.
Oh.
So all of the 2D art that you would see in the game from like the original version is the same 2D art that I brought into Cubicle, and I turned it into a 3D object and just started pulling stuff apart and turned it into 3D objects. So all of the 2 ships in the game, it's the same sprite that I drew when I first started concepting out the game. It just turned into a 3D object. And then that gave it more interesting depth. And you could see in those trailers, how I started to mess with the camera angles and stuff like that. And yeah, it was just one thing led to another, man. But it was the idea of like, I'm not going to let this trip me up. I want to finish this, and I got to do something about it. Yeah, so that's kind of, again, it goes back to the idea of the make games not excuses thing, because, you know, there are people who like, oh, I can't draw, and it's like, well, it didn't stop me. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, it shouldn't stop you, or it's not going to stop you. It just means...
How long, sorry, Livio,
No, go ahead.
This idea that you should just make a game, like, before you decided to dive into it? Forever, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I decided in 2012 to go to school for game design, did a whole year, realized it was a waste, and then immediately after dropping out, I wanted to make a game, because from that point I was like, it's got to be possible, because at that point there were other developers who were like one person team type things. So I was like, there's got to be a way. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I not understanding? And yeah, just immediately, like, fucking hardcore 100% went balls deep, dude.
I also really respect just how resourceful people can get when they're making games. Like, even though you don't know much about art, you still find little things that can help you out.
Yeah.
Little techniques, little settings, and just like that resourcefulness is like a really core skill, I think.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Especially in programming, like so much of programming, like when you're working with a developer who I've worked with developers who I thought were just brilliant, but when you pick apart like their skills and why they're so great, a lot of it is just, oh, I heard about this thing once and I thought it might come in useful someday, so I remembered it, and now it's useful.
Yeah, totally.
And just like being resourceful that way, like, is a core. It's just like a core thing that I can't imagine doing work without.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's also one of those things where I'm always telling people, it's like, just ask a question, right? Because by asking questions, that's how you're going to find out something. A lot of people just kind of, again, it goes back to what we've started talking about, dude, was the idea of, if you're always going to be hiding behind yourself, then you're definitely not going to answer any questions. You're not going to get ahead anyway, in any way. But yeah, by asking questions. So one of the things is I always draw parallels between like the music industry and like the game industry based on like, you know, like just my experience through it, where I started to realize also that, like, for example, how I said that GDC was what lit my fire and was like, okay, I'm really doing this now, was because especially like at GDC, where it's nothing but game developers. It's not like a PAX, right, where it's people who play video games. This is like total nerddom, you know what I mean? And like, you ask a question of like, you know, well, I'm trying to do this. And then someone answers the question, someone doesn't know how to do it, someone else. It's just like developer or engineers or computer like programmer type people stop at nothing to try and give you an answer on how to solve the situation you're in. You know what I mean? And it's awesome.
Becomes like
it's like a bug. Like you have to solve
dude, it's a bug. That's why they gotta fix it. It's a bug.
Well, there's so many people saying they're programmers now because they wrote one script.
Yeah.
You have to prove yourself. So
right on.
You're like, no, I can do that.
Yeah, dude, again, that's what I'm saying. I sure as hell would not call myself a programmer. Like, designer, maybe, because I kind of a cop-out, because it's like, designing is somewhat easier. I don't mean to, like, make it sound, you know, like one's better than the other, but just the idea of, or easier than the other, but it just, obviously, it's kind of like the idea of where someone says, like, oh, I have an idea. Well, cool. Yeah. 50 million people have ideas. How do you execute on it? You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest key there is the execution of the idea. But yeah, like ideas are easier to come up with. But again, programmers work mostly in execution. So that's where I've seen that kind of there. Or the difficulty.
Executables.
Kinda. Yeah. There you go, dude. Totally.
I know you do music.
Yeah.
I've been more of like a writer over the years. They kind of have a concept of what's called being a gardener, and that's where you sort of have a plot, but you don't really know what you're gonna do.
Oh.
And that's insane from the perspective of like, I'm going to software engineer a video game.
Yeah.
But with Unity, I don't know, with these modern game engines, with Unreal, it's not as insane. It just,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. I thought.
No. So I think I get what you're saying, dude, because you're like, it's this blank slate kind of thing, right? And then it's like, how do you create something from a blank slate? I mean, I don't know if that is what you're saying, but that's kind of what I got from what you were saying. And it seems
I've gotten used to thinking in terms of that as well. Like it's a lot of it comes down to prototyping and like what is prototyping. When I was a student, I had a really hard time learning like actually internalizing like what does it mean to make a rapid prototype of a game, like what does it mean to make what is a prototype, like and eventually what I settled on, the understanding that I settled on was if you think of your idea in your head as what you want to make, a prototype is not like kind of like the first draft, but almost like you just set out and be like, I want to make this idea exist as fast as possible so that I can look at it and play it and then think about it. And while you're implementing that idea, while you're executing on it, it will change. Your idea will change based on what you're learning, what constraints will come up. And so it's kind of like this hybrid between like the programming model, as you said, Jay, is very like constraint driven, spec driven. You kind of need to know what you're making before you start making it. And the prototyping process for me has been a hybrid of the creative free-flowingness where you're like, this idea might change, but for now, we're just going to program this. And you might be programming a bunch of stuff with knowing full well that you're going to throw away that code later if you pivot. And so that's how I've come to terms with it all.
The basic idea with being a gardener is that you take the opportunities that come with you. So if you have if you have I've heard community managers talk about gardening as well. Yeah, so if you see like, oh, hey, this is fun. So like an example that I could give you is that these NPCs I'm working with right now, they update and check for the ground every 1/10 of a second. And then I like the way they fall off a ledge. So the whole game is just them falling off a ledge. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't planning on that. It's not,
Yeah. No, totally. Because
cool to do it, right?
The motto I've tried to make for like or do for the studio is like gameplay first, ask questions later. And that's kind of how I started the game, right? Is I just wanted to make something really quick, fun, and bite-sized kind of thing, and then worry about everything else later, like the music. What type of music is going to go in here? What's the art going to look like? It's all that kind of stuff. So I'll go ahead and just end the stream also, because just to keep it consistent. But I'm actually going to go have dinner anyway too. But just for people who are watching this on the stream, thank you guys for stopping by. Livio, thank you, and Jay, thanks for stopping by, dude, and asking questions and chatting out, man.
Dude, that's cool.
Likewise, yeah, totally. If you're ever at an event or anything, man, feel free to introduce yourself or anything. I'd love to meet you guys in person. Livio, I think I met you at GDC a couple times.
Maybe at GDC, maybe it's in Seattle somewhere.
Maybe in Seattle, maybe in Seattle, actually.
Seattle Indies Expo.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, it had to be there. But yeah.
Maybe all the above.
What's that?
Maybe all the above.
Totally, man. So thank you guys. Thank you for doing this, man. This is awesome.
Thank you so much. We'll post a recording at some point. We're a little slow with recordings. I think we'll upload a big batch at the end of the month.
It's all good.
Which is when I have free time.
Right on. Jay, again, thank you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Jessica, if you're still there, obviously, thank you for the questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, man.